In 1971, you could walk into a Dodge dealership and buy a Charger RT with a 440 Magnum for around $3,800. That same year, a British company called Jensen was building luxury GT cars powered by the exact same Chrysler 440 engine, but they cost $10,500. Same engine, triple the price. The Jensen Interceptor represented Britain's idea of what to do with American muscle. The Charger RT was Detroit's answer to the question, how fast can we make this thing go? Two completely different philosophies using the same power plant. One was a gentleman's express built for crossing Europe in style. The other was a street fighter designed to dominate Saturday night at the local drag strip. Jensen Motors started building the Interceptor in 1966 in West Bromwich, England. The British car industry had a problem. They couldn't build engines that made serious power without costing a fortune or breaking constantly. The solution was simple: buy engines from America, where cubic inches were cheap and reliability was already proven. Jensen struck a deal with Chrysler to use their V8 engines, starting with the 383 and eventually moving to the 440. The Interceptor wasn't just an engine swap. Jensen employed skilled craftsmen who hand-built each car using traditional coach-building techniques. The body was steel, but every panel was fitted and finished by hand. The interior featured Connolly leather seats, Wilton wool carpets, and enough wood trim to panel a small office. These cars had air conditioning, power windows, and a level of fit and finish that made American muscle cars look like they were assembled in someone's garage. By 1971, the Interceptor came with Chrysler's 440 cubic inch V8, making 375 horsepower in European tune. That was the same engine Dodge put in the Charger RT, but Jensen's approach was completely different. They paired it with a torque flight automatic transmission, no manual option available. The suspension was set up for comfort and high-speed cruising, not drag racing. The goal was to hit 130 miles per hour on a German autobahn, while your passenger sipped champagne from proper glassware. Jensen built the Interceptor slowly. Each car took weeks to complete, with craftsmen fitting panels, stitching leather, and polishing chrome until everything met their standards. Production numbers reflected this approach. They built maybe 500 cars per year across all their models. The Interceptor was exclusive not because Jensen wanted it that way, but because building cars by hand takes time. The Dodge Charger RT came from a completely different world. Dodge introduced the Charger in 1966 as their answer to the Pontiac GTO and Ford Mustang. The RT package, Road Track, arrived in 1967 and immediately established the Charger as serious muscle. By 1971, the Charger had been through a redesign that gave it the aggressive, fastback profile that still looks mean today. The 1971 Charger RT came standard with the 440 Magnum. Same displacement as the Jensen's engine, but tuned for completely different priorities. Dodge didn't care about smooth power delivery or quiet operation. They wanted maximum torque right now. The 440 Magnum made 370 horsepower officially, but real dyno tests showed closer to 400. More importantly, it made 480 pound-feet of torque at 3,200 RPM. That kind of grunt meant the Charger could break the rear tires loose in second gear without trying hard. Dodge built thousands of Charger RTs every year. The production line at the Hamtramck plant could assemble one every few hours. Workers installed the engine, bolted on the transmission, added the interior, and sent it down the line. Quality control meant making sure it started and the doors closed properly. If you wanted perfection, you bought something else. If you wanted maximum performance for minimum money, the Charger delivered. The difference showed up immediately when you climbed inside. The Jensen Interceptor felt like a British club on wheels. Deep leather seats that you sank into, a dashboard covered in burled walnut, and controls that operated with precision. Everything was designed for long-distance comfort. The back seat could actually fit adult humans. The trunk could hold luggage for a 2-week trip across Europe. The Charger RT interior was functional and nothing more. Vinyl seats unless you paid extra for leather. Plastic dashboard with enough fake wood grain to fool no one. The back seat was useless for anyone over 6 feet tall, and the trunk could barely hold 2 golf bags. But the instrument cluster put the tachometer front and center, and that's what mattered. This car wasn't built for comfort. It was built to go fast and look good doing it. Performance numbers told an interesting story. The Jensen Interceptor could hit 60 miles per hour in about 7.3 seconds with the automatic transmission. The quarter mile took 15.2 seconds at 93 miles per hour. Those weren't slow numbers for 1971, especially for a luxury car weighing 3,850 pounds. But they weren't muscle car numbers either. The Dodge Charger RT with the 440 Magnum did 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. The quarter mile clicked off in 14.5 seconds at 98 miles per hour. Put decent tires on it, and that dropped to the high 13 seconds. The Charger weighed about 3,700 pounds, which was lighter than the Jensen despite being a bigger car. That weight difference came from using thinner steel, less sound deadening, and leaving out all the luxury features Jensen considered essential. Top speed revealed different priorities. The Jensen could cruise all day at 130 miles per hour. The suspension stayed composed, the cabin remained quiet, and the engine barely broke a sweat. This was a car designed for European motorways where speed limits were suggestions and fuel stops were hours apart. The Charger's top speed was similar, maybe 135 miles per hour with enough room, but getting there meant fighting the wind, the chassis, and your own survival instincts. The Charger wasn't built for sustained high-speed cruising. It was built for short bursts of violence, followed by long stretches of looking cool. Handling showed the biggest difference. The Jensen used independent rear suspension, which was rare for anything using an American V8. The suspension was soft enough for comfort, but controlled enough to maintain composure at speed. Power steering was standard, and the brakes were massive discs all around, unusual for 1971. Put the Interceptor on a winding road, and it felt planted and predictable. Not sports car sharp, but competent and confidence-inspiring. The Charger used a solid rear axle and torsion bar front suspension that Dodge had been refining since 1962. It worked well enough for drag racing and highway cruising, but push it hard through corners and the Charger let you know it was a big, heavy car. Body roll was significant, and the steering required muscle inputs that made parking lot maneuvers a workout. Disc brakes were standard on the front, but the rears still used drums. Stopped from 60 miles per hour and the Charger needed about 140 feet. The Jensen needed 130. Price and availability created two different ownership experiences. The Charger RT was everywhere. Walk into any Dodge dealer in 1971, and they probably had 3 or 4 on the lot. Options were abundant. You could get the 426 Hemi, different transmissions, various rear gear ratios, and appearance packages. Financing was easy, insurance was expensive but obtainable, and parts were cheap because Dodge made thousands of these things. The Jensen Interceptor was rare, even when new. Jensen had one small factory and limited dealer network. Most sales happened in Britain and Europe, with only a few hundred making it to America each year. If something broke, you hoped your local mechanic knew British cars. The Chrysler engine made repairs easier, but everything else was exotic. Insurance companies didn't know what to do with a British GT car that cost as much as 2 Corvettes. Both cars reflected their creators' priorities perfectly. Jensen wanted to build the ultimate grand touring car, something that could cross continents quickly and comfortably while making its owner feel sophisticated. They succeeded. The Interceptor combined British craftsmanship with American muscle and created something unique. It wasn't the fastest car you could buy, but it was one of the most civilized ways to go fast. Dodge wanted to build the coolest-looking muscle car that regular people could afford. They succeeded too. The Charger RT looked like it was doing 100 miles per hour while sitting still. It had enough power to embarrass most cars at the Stoplight Grand Prix, and it cost less than a loaded pickup truck. Sure, the build quality was questionable, and the interior was cheap, But none of that mattered when you were smoking the tires in front of your buddies. The Jensen Interceptor lasted until 1976, when rising costs and changing emission regulations killed the company. They built about 6,400 Interceptors total across 10 years. Today, they're collectible oddities. British Exotica, powered by Detroit iron. Values have climbed steadily, with good examples selling for $40,000 to $80,000 depending on condition. The Charger RT ended production in 1974 as the muscle car era collapsed under insurance costs and fuel economy regulations. Dodge built hundreds of thousands of Chargers across all model years, but the RT variants with big blocks are increasingly rare. Clean examples now bring $40,000 to $100,000, with special editions like the Daytona and Super B commanding even more. Looking back, both cars use the same foundation, Chrysler's bulletproof 440 V8, to achieve completely different goals. The Charger RT was pure American muscle. Loud, fast, aggressive, and affordable. It represented everything great about the muscle car era. Maximum performance with minimum pretense. The Jensen Interceptor was a gentleman's muscle car. Quiet, fast, refined, and exclusive. It proved that European luxury and American power could coexist in one package. Which one was better? Depends entirely on what you wanted. If your goal was to dominate Friday night at the drag strip and turn heads at every stoplight, the Charger RT delivered for less than half the price. If you wanted to cross Europe at triple-digit speeds while your passenger remained comfortable enough to fall asleep, the Jensen was the obvious choice. The Charger was faster in a straight line. The Jensen was faster with a passenger, luggage, and 500 miles left to go. Both cars proved that great performance doesn't require one specific formula. You can build a muscle car that's brutal and raw, or you can build one that's sophisticated and refined. Either way works, as long as you commit fully to your vision. Jensen and Dodge did exactly that, using the same engine to create two of the most memorable cars of the early 1970s. One was a street fighter wearing work boots. The other was a gentleman wearing a tuxedo. Both could leave you behind at the stoplight.